In this video, I'm going to give a perfect guide on how to learn web development 2023. Stick around, I'm going to give you bonus tips at the end of this video. So, if you want to learn web dev, where do you even start? It is hard to find the right advice for dictionary suffering from information overload. That's why I've created this beginner's roadmap. It lays all the basics you need to learn web dev. We are going to go through several steps, so by the end of this guide, you will have an understanding of the basics of web dev and what skills you need to learn it. I recommend you doing step 1, 2, 3 in order. Then depending on whether you want to focus on front end or back end, you can either do step 4A or 4B. But I personally think it is better for front end developers to at least learn a little of back end and vice versa. Knowing the basics of both will help you to know if you like front end or back end dev better. Sound good? Let's get deeper into the roadmap. Before you actually get into coding, you will need to understand some general concepts as you start your journey into web dev. For sure, you're asking yourself how websites work, what's the difference between front end and back end, and also you will need to understand about how to actually use a code editor. All websites at most basic are just a bunch of files that are stored on a computer called a server. This server is connected to the internet. We can load that website through a browser like Chrome, Firefox or Safari on your computer or on your phone. Your browser is also called a client in this situation. So every time you are on the internet, you, the client, are loading data from the server as well as submitting data back to the server. This back and forth between client and server is the basic of the internet. Web developers' roles typically falls into 3 categories. Those categories are front end, back end, and full stack. The term front end, back end, and full stack describes what part of client-server relationship you're actually working with. Front end means that you are dealing mainly with the client side. It is called front end because it is actually what you see on a browser. The back end is the part of the website that we actually don't see, but it handles a lot of logic and functionality that is necessary for everything to work. One way to think this is, let's take a website as a restaurant. Front end is the front part of the restaurant where customers come and experience the restaurant, interior decor, setting, and of course eating of the food. On the other hand, let's take back end as the back part of the restaurant. It is where deliveries are made, where all the food are being processed. And there's a lot that is happening there without customers' knowledge. That is exactly how the website works. When you build a website, the most essential tool you will need is your code editor, IDE, which is Integrated Development Environment in full. This tool allows you to write the code that will make up your website. There are quite a few of good options out there, but currently, the most popular code editor is Visual Studio Code. VS Code is the most lightweight version of Visual Studio, Microsoft main IDE. It is fast, free, and easy to use, and we can customize it with themes and extensions. Other code editors out there are Sublime Text, Atom, and Vim. But if you are getting started, I would recommend you to actually check out Visual Studio Code, which you can download free from the website. Now that we have covered some of the broader concepts of what is web dev, let's get into more details, starting with the front end. The front side of the website is made up of 3 types of files: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These files are what is loaded in the browser on the client side. HTML is the foundation of all websites. It is the main file type that is loaded on your browser when you look at a website. The HTML file contains all the content of the page, and it uses text to present different types of content. For example, you can use text to create headline titles, images, paragraphs, and so on. While text by themselves do have some styles attached to them, they're pretty basic, kinda look like a Word document. This is where CSS comes in. CSS, or Cascade Style Sheet in full, let you style your website the way you want. You can make it look fancy and nice. You can add colors, custom fonts, and layout of elements of your website however you want using it. There is a lot you can do with CSS, but some people just look over it because they are aiming to move into further things like JavaScript. However, it is important to convert your design into website layout using CSS. JavaScript is the programming language that was designed to run in the browser. Using JavaScript, we can make our website responsive on different inputs from the user. For example, we can build a back to top button, but when you click it, they roll the page back to the top. As I mentioned, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the basic building blocks of the front end. In addition to them, there are a few other tools you need to learn at this point. Libraries. Libraries are open source scripts that are ready to use. We can think them like plugins. Instead of writing everything from the scratch, we can use helpful utilities that other people have already written. For instance, let's say you can simply use the slider plugin instead of to code it by yourself, which might take you days to figure it out. The last tool you need to learn at this stage is version control, also called source control. Is the system that tracks every code change you make in your project files, and even revert to previous changes if you make a mistake. It's almost like having infinite save points of a project, and let me tell you one thing, it can be a huge lifesaver. The most popular version control system is an open source system called Git. Using Git, we can store all your files and their change history in collections called repositories. You may also heard of GitHub, which is an online hosting company owned by Microsoft, where you can store all your Git repositories. At this point, we have learned the basics of front-end development, and we have a choice either to dig into additional front-end skills or learn basics of back-end development. With additional front-end, there are more intermediate skills you will need to learn. I recommend that you look into the following: responsive design and JavaScript framework. Responsive design ensures that all your styles will look good in all devices, which can be desktops, tablets, and mobile phones. The core practices of responsive design include using flexible sizing for elements, as well as utilizing media queries and add target styles for specific devices and widths. Instead of setting your content to be a static 400 pixel wide, we can use a media query or set content to be 50% width on desktop and 100% on mobile. Building your website with responsive design is a must these days, especially as mobile traffic is outspacing desktop traffic in many cases, but that is a topic for another video. Once you have the basics of vanilla JavaScript down, you may also want to learn one of JavaScript frameworks, especially if you want to be a full-stack developer. These frameworks come with pre-built structures and components that allow you to build apps quicker than actually coding from the scratch. Currently, there are three main options, which are React, Angular, and Vue. You might be wondering now, okay, well, which framework is the best? The truth is, they are all good. In web dev, there's almost never a single choice that is 100% the best choice for every person in every situation. Your choice will most likely be determined by your job or by simply which one you enjoy most. If your end goal is to land a job in a company, try researching which framework seems to be the most common in potential job listing. Don't know too much about which framework to use. It's more important that you learn and understand the concepts behind them. And once you learn one framework, it will be much easier to learn other ones after that. Let's move on to our last section, Backend Development. The backend or server side is made up of three components: the server-side programming language, and database. As I mentioned in the beginning, the server is a computer where all website files, the database, and other components are stored. Traditional servers run on operating systems such as Linux or Windows. They are also considered centralized because by everything I mean the website files, backend code, and data are stored all together on the server. Nowadays, there are also serverless architectures, which is more decentralized type of setup. Serverless setups are popular because they are fast, cheap, and you do not need to worry about server maintenance. They are great for simple static websites which does not require any traditional server-side language. However, for very complex applications, the traditional server-side setup might be a better option. On the server, you need to use a programming language to write functions and logic for your application. The server then compiles your code and conveys the results back to the client. Popular programming languages for the web include PHP, Python, Ruby, C#, and Java. There is also a form of JavaScript for server-side, Node.js, which is a runtime environment that can run JavaScript code on the server. Finally, you will need to learn about databases. Database, as the name implies, are where the information is stored on your server. So, most databases use a language called SQL, also pronounced SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language. In the database, the information is stored in tables, sort of like Excel documents. Then you can write queries in SQL in order to create, read, update, and delete data. The database is run on a server using servers like Microsoft SQL Server on Windows Server and MySQL on Linux. There are also non-SQL databases which store data in JSON files as opposed to traditional tables. One of NoSQL databases is MongoDB, which is often used in React, Angular, and Vue applications. Some examples on how data is utilized on web are: if you have a contact form on website, you could build a form so that every time someone submits the form, the information is saved on your database. You can also store login details in the database and write logic in the server-side language to handle checking and authenticating the logins. And that is how I recommend you to get started with your journey into web development. Last tip is, there is a book linked below which can help you get started. And that is all about today's video. Thank you for watching this video. There's more content upcoming. Stay tuned. Signing out.